Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Premodern again, but also a new deck that I came up with. I came up with. It's called Cherry Parfait, and it's basically an old vintage deck from old times when vintage was like old. God, I'm so old. Like I think we're talking about early 2000s ish. At least the deck I think was like 2000, and then I remember reading an article, and I'll link that down in the description. I think it was from like 2001, and it's a really innovative new deck where it's like those old white weenie like land tax scroll rack decks. So it's based around that. Instead of like being like an aggressive deck or whatever, this morphed into like a more of a board control kind of thing. Um, and so you can use Enlighten Tutor to find all your silver bullets, and basically there's a lot of ways to build it. Um, in fact, there's like a bajillion ways to build it. So here we go. Here we go. So here's the deck list. So regular Parfait is just mono white. Cherry Parfait, of course, is with a red splash. You get it? Does it make sense? Okay. Wow. It makes sense. It makes sense to me because I'm a genius and I know everything. So um, pretty simple. Basically just mono white with some pain lands and two mountains to search for land tax. So it's really easy to splash another color in this. And then you got all your disruption, which again should all look pretty similar. Like, I mean, yeah, playing Wrath and you're playing swords in a white deck. Can you believe it? Abeyance is pretty good. I'm not sure how many of those should be played. Some of the numbers are like, I mean, there's so much you can do to customize it. Um, but yeah, basically use tax rack to get cards. Then use your Enlightened Tutor to search for whatever you need to disrupt the game. And then your sideboard is, I mean, again, same thing. Tons and tons of options you can use. I mean, it's hard to really find a place to start. I was looking through bajillions of cards, and I don't even know if there's like a real. I mean, there's some stuff you'd never cut, like the Wrath and the Swords. You'll always play those. You'll always play the Mox Diamond, Land Scroll Rack, and Enlightened Tutor. Um, I think probably you only really want two scroll racks. I mean, you might be able to play another one, but you can just tutor for it if you don't have it half the time. But all of the silver bullets, you'll be able to really play different ones. And then even your kill, there's a couple different ones you can use. Um, so uh, what is this thing? Basically, it's a mono white control deck. Of course, all sorts of splashes you can play. If you're only playing mono white, you can't play Wasteland, which is kind of nice. So that is a check. If you just want to stay mono white, you can play Wasteland. I feel like the splash is a little better, and it really doesn't hurt your consistency too much. So I like red because red gives you tons and tons of cards. Biggest one being Pyroblast in the sideboard. Really nice against all the blue decks. Really powerful, and it really you can counter Factor Fictions, counter their counters. Gives you another piece of disruption along with the abeyance against like combo decks and other blue decks, and so that's really nice. Even random stuff like Price of Glory, which I used in one of my I think my Mogi's deck. The black red god guy. It's just like a Punisher card or whatever. It's really good against to tutor for against the blue decks because it basically shuts down counter magic unless they can tap for stuff, but they'll blow up their lands, which is sweet. And the biggest thing I think is, other than Blood Moon, of course, main deck, which is awesome, um, is Goblin Trenches, because Trenches doesn't have the downside of having to like pay mana all the time to make like Pegasus tokens with Sacred Mesa, or also it's cheaper than Mobilization, makes more tokens than either of them, and it has synergy with land tax. So if you didn't want to just sack your lands to Zernor for just to gain a little bit of life, this will let you develop your board and advance it. And I want to say this is my own genius idea, but I always hate plagiarism, so I'm trying to. I couldn't think of if I saw this anywhere. I think it's just because I mean I love Goblin Trenches. I have like a lot of the original like red white Goblin Soldier tokens that they I think that was like the player reward, so I got those forever ago. I've always like wanted to use it. Um, so yeah, and I was like, oh, this is the perfect place. So this is I'm going to take credit for it and say Goblin Trenches and Parfait was my idea. And if anyone says I'm wrong, well then you're wrong and I'm right. Anyways, so you make tons of guys, you make twice as many guys, you have synergy with land tax, um, and obviously the planar birth, which looks a little wonky, but it's basically there so you can obviously when you sack all your lands, you can get them back, make even more dudes, or obviously against defense against land destruction, or just for gaining all your life back and gain more life with Zero Orb. So there's a lot going on, but I think trenches is basically the best win condition, the best one for winning quickly, um, and that's good. And then still also like yeah, slamming that early against control is pretty sweet because you can just make a couple of dudes every now and then. Really don't need to make that many, and then you can put them on a clock, which is pretty sweet, pretty sweet. But yeah, basically that's all you want to do is just control the board. Win with trenches, or if you're playing mono white like mobilization or sacred mesa or whatever, you can recur cards. You can recur your own cards forever and ever with Soul Devi Digger or Scroll Rack or whatever to not draw your deck out. If that was like for whatever reason you're not able to win with Goblin Trenches or something, or you can Argivian find like Jester's Cap a couple times and cap them a bunch. Also, you can recur the Jester's Cap to remove their entire library to deck them faster, um, that could work. The Jester's Cap basically also ensures that you won't have to, like if they're running Gaia's Blessing, which is not uncommon in this format. Like some of the 4-color deck runs it, so you can Jester's Cap them to remove the Gaia's Blessing to deck them that way. So that's cool. That's cool. So it's nice to know that it's another option. But yeah, so that's basically so one of the ways to win. I mean, you can play gosh, there's so many different cards to play. I went through like uh, like all the different enchantments for each color. Black is probably the worst one. There's not a ton of good stuff, especially since a lot of black enchantments hit on white cards. Um, but red had some good stuff, a lot of good creature hate. Um, stuff like Power Stone Minefield or the one when a creature comes to play, it deals 2 damage to it. I mean, those are good cards. Obviously, the problem is they have like negative synergy with your win conditions, but they are good cards. So this is another thing to remember that you can tutor for or whatever. You can always blow them up with your Aura of Silence or your Seal of Cleansing. You can play that instead. Although I think that the taxing effect of Aura of Silence probably puts it over, I think, instead of the cheaper Seal of Cleansing. Anyways, so here's all these things. Look through. Blue has a lot of good stuff. Obviously, back to basics and Blood Moon are more or less interchangeable. Obviously, it gets Hydro Blast, which is of course very nice against all the red decks. So it gives you another card to just slow them down a little bit before you can drop your stuff. Your Ivory Mask and so on. I mean, there's obviously all the Circle of Protections or Runes of Protection. I mean, there's a silly amount of stuff. Also, I like the Exalted Angel here is good because I like the Angel Gambit kind of thing of boarding in your, because a lot of times you don't have anything worth using their spot removal on or whatever, so they'll take out like their spot removal and you can bring in your Exalted Angels or whatever. And of course, those are good against red decks too, which is kind of nice. But I mean, yeah, if you look at all the cards here, some of them are less good than others. Obviously, Squeeze, but I thought that would be cool to play in the sideboard if it was ever relevant, but probably not. Confiscate's cool because you can steal their win conditions or steal their good permanents or something. So blue's pretty strong color to play. Obviously, Meddling Mage, very, very good against combo decks. So that's pretty sweet. Black does offer stuff like Duress and whatnot against combo decks, but I think and Phyrexian Arena 2 is probably the strongest one. Oh, I guess Seal of Doom as well. Um, but it's hard to say. I mean, green has a ton of good stuff. Obviously, Choke against all the blue decks, and then Seduce Solitude as well, which is very good. Compost against black decks. Like I mentioned previously, Spreading Algae would be pretty good against black decks as well. I mean, really, there's tons and tons and tons of stuff. Uh, Primal Order, that's a good one. You guys will look that up. That's a good card. Um, I mean, gosh, like there's really I mean, there's no end to the stuff you can play. Wake is a good one too, because Wake you can really win really fast because it gives you a ton of mana, then also pumps up your tokens, your token army from mobilization or sacred mesa or whatnot. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So yeah. So there's gosh, I mean, there's so many different options to play. Um, I mean, you really can tune it to your own specific metagame. I mean, the only problem is there is no general metagame, it seems like. I mean, there's certain decks you're probably more likely to face, but I mean, there's so much stuff. So being able to answer a whole wide different varieties of stuff is good. So having more general purpose cards, maybe stuff like um, maybe more abeyance might be nice. So you can, because it card pops, which I like it over chant, although I don't know which is better. Chant's obviously better versus creature decks. But abeyance is good. I like cycling. I like the side that it cycles. You know, that has the draw card. That's pretty sweet. Gosh, I mean, there's so much you can do. And so yeah, this deck is a lot of similarities between other decks. Obviously, something like Enchantress is kind of similar to, because you use a lot of the same cards, replenish, things like that. But it has a different strategy. And it's a little bit more of a control deck, a little bit more controlling, I think. And obviously plays more it's less about like just drawing tons of cards and whatever and comboing out with like Words of War or something. Um, but yeah, that's basically it. It's a pretty cool deck, pretty fun. Um, I mean, you can do whatever you want with it, and that's always fun. The only problem is it's kind of expensive, you know, because of, well, you can get the cheaper versions of Land Tax and the cheaper version of Blood Moon, but you know, Mox Diamonds are always going to be expensive. But everything else, for the most part, I think is pretty cheap, So that's pretty nice. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, a lot of the cards are kind of self-explanatory. Just play a bunch of hosers and hose people to death, and then eventually kill them with goblin trenches. That's what you're supposed to do. Um, but yeah, I hope this list is useful, or both of them. I mean, look at all these different cards you can play. Holy moly! I think I think there was other cards too, but they were like a little too fringy, I think, for me to want to put on here. But anyways, so that's basically it, guys. So I think this deck is really sweet. I have a lot of fun brewing it up and looking through all the cards. There's so much you can do. So much you can do, and that's always fun. That's why I like this format. All right, guys. So that's it. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.